Hi, welcome to You Didn't Get the Memo Show. I'm your host, Gloria Bailey Ray. And as always, we have an exciting show for you today. In fact, I want to give a shout out to all of you who are texting me and saying you're on. So You Didn't Get the Memo, for those of you who are new to the show, is about providing you, the viewer, with relevant fact-based mainstream information to help you be informed and to make informed decisions. We are streaming live on YouTube, on Facebook, as well as LinkedIn. And by the way, this is an interactive show. So for those of you who may have questions for my guests, please put them in the comment section. We'll do our very best to get to them and respond to you. Okay. So I want to also give a gentle reminder to each of you that if you just really want to veg on You Didn't Get the Memo Show, you can download the BTV app and you can stream my shows. It's under the memos and you can stream them. They're running 24/7. So just go to www.localbtv.com, download the BT app, and I want to tell you, I appreciate you doing that. Quick shout out again to all my viewers all around the world. I want to thank you guys for being here. Thank you for tuning in. Now, my guest today is Dr. Terrell Gray. And I want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Gray. But before I do that, we're talking about today semiconductors, and they're the brains of modern electronics, which basically all the stuff, the technology you guys are dealing with, it actually enables these technologies to take place. They're critical to the U.S. economic growth, our national security, as well as global competitiveness. Now, there have been a lot of advances made as it relates to semiconductors because they've driven these advances as it relates to communication, computings, healthcare, military systems, and so on. And here's the thing why I want to have Dr. Gray come on and talk, because one of the things that's missing is you, your children. If you are a person of color, a Black person, we need you to tune in, turn up that bell tone hearing aid, and let's get informed because it's no secret. Listen, the greater the workforce diversity is, that actually helps tech companies. And with the addition of more Blacks in the industry making contributions, they can have an enormous impact on building America's innovation economy. So, said I want to tell you a little bit about my guest, Dr. Terrell Gray. The brother is just dope. He is a 20 plus years semiconductor industry technology professional. Currently, Dr. Gray is a senior sales executive for a Fortune 500 global technology firm. He's a life member, shout out, Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. All right. And Dr. Gray's academic credentials, let me tell you, they speak for themselves, but I'll tell you what they are. They include a Bachelor of Science in Electronic Engineering from Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a master's in business administration in technology management from the University of Phoenix, and a doctorate in executive leadership from the University of Charleston. So without further ado, I want to welcome to the show Dr. Gray. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Gloria. Thank you for having me. I'm very
Yeah.
impressed with your research on the semiconductor industry. So you just stole my thunder.
No, but it's you who are you're in it. And that's what I gotta do. I gotta have some knowledge
I,
of it.
I
But
like that.
it's really, really interesting. And that's one of the things that we've been touting and talking up is the fact that this is real. Right. And so we're going to get into it. And I promise not to steal any more thunder because I'm going to kick it to you right now and ask you to start with just, first of all, giving our viewers a little bit about your backstory. I told them, gave them your credentials, but the backstory is what we all want to know.
Great. Growing up as a kid in Manny, Louisiana, that's North Louisiana, I was always, interested in opening up electronic products, they used to call me the fix it man. So I would break things and try to fix it back or re-engineer it at a young age. So when I was matriculating through grade school as well as high school and then going into college, I was kind of mixed, had the mixed feelings of going into engineering or mass communications. Long story short, I went into engineering, and the rest, rest is history. But I always had an interest in electronics and how things work.
Yeah. Okay. So the semiconductor space, though, that's something different. And that's why I had to really delve into and really understand. It was so much basic knowledge. I'm like, oh my goodness, probably like a lot of people don't know what is that, what it's about. So, we're going to start there and then we're going to funnel it down. So we're like this, but we're going to bring it down. But you talked about as a kid, you were kind of like into trying to figure things out. But you know what? Why the semiconductor space? What brought you to that? Because it's one thing to fix some things and have a working knowledge of electronics, but semiconductor space is very, very different.
Well, to be honest with you, upon graduating from Southern University, our placement office did a great job in ensuring that we graduating students had exposure to corporate America. So Applied Materials is a global semiconductor, one the biggest global semiconductor equipment company. So Applied Materials actually makes the systems that make the semiconductor chips. They're a $23 billion organization. So they actually recruited me from Southern University, um, and it just so happened to be the semiconductor space. I honestly didn't know what I was really getting into. I knew it was a technology firm, so it just happened to be semiconductor, and I've been in semiconductor 20 plus years. Um, this space is growing rapidly, and it's an essential organization, essential industry that makes the world go round. So, in Applied Materials customers, they serve customers such as Intel, Samsung, IBM, to name a few. These are the companies that actually make the semiconductor chips, the integrated circuits.
Okay, and that leads me into the question of, let's tell our viewers what a semiconductor is, and what are they used for. And I know that maybe for some of you, because I see you, I holla shout out to Detroit. Thank you, Big D, for being here, Texas. But the thing is, there are people who may have a knowledge, but they're not even clear, because I'm telling you, when I realized that everything in my studio, I'm like, semiconductor, man, I got to get uh, with it, and, and invest in this technology, because I mean, it runs everything that we do. So the question on the table is to tell the viewers what a semiconductor is, if we can give the Reader's Digest version of it and what they're used for.
I will try, but I know when I first entered the industry, I lived in Austin, Texas for a couple of years, and Applied Materials moved me to Virginia for a couple of years into Silicon Valley, where I am now. And I used to remember going back to my hometown, Manning, Louisiana, stating, saying I work in the semiconductor industry, and the question was, "What's a semiconductor? You work on computers?" And I
Mhm.
say, "No, it's more complex than that." So a semiconductor, it's a microelectronic device. It's fabricated on semiconductor material, silicon. So you take bare sand, and it goes through a peering process of into a pure silicon wafer. So that is normally an integrated circuit type device, or a grouping of electronic parts connected in such a manner as to form a circuit for a specific function. So anything that's inside your computers, or anything inside your smart devices, your automotive equipment, it's for a specific function. So it's created to do certain things. Even in the Xbox machines, it's created to do certain things. So the semiconductors, transistors, and integrated circuit used in specific applications. Semiconductors are found in virtually every electric or smart product consumers use today.
And that was where I wanted to go with that. Like you said, in every consumer product that we use. And the interesting thing about it is, and why I wanted to talk to you, is let's get into why the demand is so great for candidates who have the understanding of this technology, or at least kind of a working knowledge, because this is really key. And I just want to say to my viewers, look, the whole thing, my pull here today is for you to have your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren. We need young men, young women. We need you, Black people, to, let's get involved and get or have an awareness of this technology, because at the end of the day, when I saw what the salaries were, which we're going to get into that, just starting salaries, I was amazed. But why is the demand so great for people to understand this technology?
Well, the good question, Gloria. The semiconductor industry growth rate is phenomenal. So we expect this industry to grow 10% in 2022, which
Wow.
is over $600 billion for the first time ever in the history of semiconductors. Chips will be even more important across all industries, driven by increasing semiconductor content in everything from cars to appliances to factories, in addition to the usual suspects as computers, data centers, phones. And additionally, we have the emergence of AI, artificial intelligence, as well as the Internet of Things, IoT, and machine learning technologies, which is providing new opportunities for market development. So this is a growing market for years to come. This is a great time for new college grads to enter this space.
Mm. Okay, so college grads, you heard that? Why this is important? We need you. We need you. Dr. Gray, we title this Unicorns. The discussion is about unicorns. And as you know, I probably should have said this at the beginning, unicorns really don't exist. But the reason why we call that unicorn is simply because there are so few blacks that are in this space. And basically, it's like being a unicorn in this space. Guys, we need you. I'm telling you, why I do this show is to highlight these things that are critical, to our growth and sustainability. So that's one of the things that when I met Dr. Gray, and I was just like, geez, besides just being kind of, usually people say, oh, he's a geek, but I'm like, this brother is just deep. He is like, whoa, like over my head kind of thing. But it's great to meet and to know people and to be in that same space. So this is one of the reasons why, and y'all already know this, those of you who are on here, it's all about me bringing it to you. I ain't playing. So Dr. Gray, this is the thing. But listen, what I want to do is I want to take you know, a quick break. And when we come back, let's talk about the semiconductor industry. Back in 2021, there was a study that was actually performed. And let's talk about that because it's going to highlight and bubble up to the top the number of Blacks that are in this profession and those that are not. So I'm going to say thank you guys. Don't go anywhere. We are going to be right back. And I am so glad that you guys are here with me. All right. Stay tuned. If you're into education, motivation, and inspiration, you'll want to tune in to the You Didn't Get the Memo show with me, your host, Gloria Bailey Ray. We strive to provide you with information that is relevant, factual, and mainstream. Be sure and tune in every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time to You Didn't Get the Memo. I'll see you there.
Stem is precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to load their minds. Dare to explore. Dare to STEM. Learn more at She Can STEM.
All right, I want to welcome you guys back, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the You Didn't Get the Memo show with my awesome guest, Dr. Terrell Gray. And before we went to break, one of the things that I posed, a question I posed to Dr. Gray was in my research, I found out that there was a 2021 study that was done called the 2021 Semiconductor Industry Association Study. And so, can you talk a little bit about, what was found in that particular study? You're on mute. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yeah. All right. Okay. So that study identify that something around, I think it was 3 or 4% of the semiconductor workforce is Black. And my question to you is, what do you think are the contributing factors to these dismal numbers? I mean, 3%, 4%, that's basically nothing.
You're right, and back in 2020, it was 67% of the tech companies are comprised of less than 5% Black employees.
Mhm.
Though many big tech companies they talk the talk of diversity, equity, and inclusion, but few of them have made good on their word. So, in most cases, it's just been lip service and kind of putting DNI in place and checking a box. But it should be more accountability in regards to that. And I did see your like a leading question about that.
Yeah, yeah, and what I guess what I find is interesting is where's the breakdown? Um, let's talk about the recruitment of people of color, Black people in the semiconductor industry, and let's just start. I'm just going to punt that question to you because I know it's kind of wide open, but at the same time, let's first of all let's just start with the recruitment. That's the first piece.
Well, I mean, of course, we recruit from historical Black colleges and universities, as well as primary white institutions. We also have NESB. I'm more biased to the HBCUs because that was a nurturing environment for me at Southern University, where I felt comfortable in my space to succeed versus being in a space where you potentially could be weeded out. So, that's my bias towards HBCUs. And in my opinion, a lot of the HBCUs with engineering schools have great engineering schools, which be very competitive in corporate America.
Okay, so they start with HBCU schools. And do you find though that there's still that there is as big of a push, in my opinion, as it should be, for um, students to learn this technology and to go into this field? Because at the same time, one of the things, even when I look at what's happening in middle school, high school, as well as off to college, I just you started out saying some, you didn't know a whole lot about it, but one of the things is, how do people get that information? What needs to happen for us to get people of color involved in this technology?
Well, I think it starts in the early years. Starts at home. To have an exposure to technology, better foundational skills in math and science in the early years. Also, career awareness. So, math and science in schools need to be made more accessible to students of color. It should be encouraged. If students say, "Hey, oh, that's hard. I'm not going to take the math." I know a lot of people kind of shy away from math and science, but however uh, you know, do a deep dive, get involved, get engaged with it. You never know. You could be there could be a hidden talent that's unveiled, right? So technology is the wave of the future. So we should definitely encourage our kids that technology can provide a great quality of life. We also have internships, and having a mentor is a great access as well. Being in environments that support the interests of young people in technologies like the STEM programs, like Hidden Genius, Black Girls Code, the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, even Kappa Alpha Psi. We have the Kappa League, right? We have a STEM component in that. In addition, we also have the Prince Hall Shriners, which we have mentor programs. We're sponsoring HBCUs and STEM programs. So it's a lot of great potential and with all these community service organizations.
Mhm. Yeah. You said something. I want to go back to it. It's interesting how a myth can be, what's the word I want to say, just perpetrated by saying math is hard, science is hard. And if there is more emphasis around there is support for you as relates to math. I think back to my days of geometry, trigonometry, and I know things have certainly changed from when I was in college. But at the same time, getting our students to see that there's fun in this there, and what this can do for them. That I guess I'm looking for a magic bullet for what we can do to get these kids involved in this and to go into this particular industry, because it's not going to go away with electric cars. And as you said, it's not just computers. It's, look, AI, artificial intelligence, is alive and well, and it's real. And so these are things that we need to have our kids, our black and brown kids, really at the forefront of what's happening. And the reason for that also, in my opinion, is that, they're so creative. They think outside the box. They come up with stuff, and you be saying, whoa, talk about blow my mind. So we need those young ideas, you guys. Those of you that are tuned in, we need the young ideas. We need, our children to really get involved in that. And I guess I'm just on that because it's just so important to me.
It's also, Gloria, like, we have I have two boys, so everybody kids loves Xbox, PlayStation,
Mhm.
all of those games, the Oculus, artificial intelligence
Right.
games. So if you look at the love of those games, so I asked my son Tristan, I say, hey, what's inside that box? He said something that makes the world makes the game go. I said, what is that? And he said a circuit. I'm like, okay, an integrated circuit. So we can ask our kids, so you like this game so much, why don't you understand what makes that game do what it does? It's several different integrated circuits inside that component
Mhm.
that makes the game what it is today, right? So that could be like a draw, like, hey, I'm spending hours on this game. Let me understand. Let me go to the granular level of this game, and understand how it actually works.
Mhm.
So you can have kids build their own gaming stations and all of that. So that's all related to STEM.
Right.
We have like building circuits, circuits, and making certain projects, making a light come on, making a motion fan move. It's certain fun things that I'm an advocate of getting, particularly for my kids, to make their brains operate on
Right.
how things actually work.
Right. Right. We have a question from one of the viewers, and it is, that I understand that IT is in high demand, but is there a better place to focus, such as cybersecurity or programming?
Well, that's so cybersecurity and programming definitely requires, it's a different skill set than, so semiconductors basically in every electronic type device, right? So even in cybersecurity and programming, you're going to be doing something related to semiconductor,
Mm, mm-hmm.
because when you're talking cybersecurity, you're protecting, um, space in the cloud, people from hacking into
Right.
uh, other devices. But semiconductors are related to that, so it's all intertwined.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But semiconductors, like I said, as I was doing research, I was like, boy, this is a really deep field, but deep, but at the same time, very interesting. So I was very intrigued with that. And so that's why I think that we really need to really give that push. So parents, if you aren't involved at your school boards, you need to find out what programs are being offered to your children and lead and guide them into that. And what I'm leading up to ultimately is just for them to be able to have a living, I mean, a really solid, great living. And then you can go off and do some other things, but you need to have this technology. So let me just ask you this, Dr. Gray. Let's talk about the competitive salaries in the semiconductor field. You know what? To me, I still don't understand why there aren't more blacks who even have the knowledge base, why they're not flocking to this career path.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, the lack of awareness, and lack of preparation. So, um, me, like people like myself, people that are in this space, the 5% of us that's in this space, we need to be reaching back and pulling forward, going back and telling, about the industry. How can you get into the industry? Being that mentor, several college, graduates, mentors, trying to get them connected into the space. But awareness, raise our expectations for what our kids taught in school, in our schools. We need to make it cool and accessible. So that's why I brought up the Xbox example. And we can have a conversation on creating, your own gaming platform that will pique their interest, and give them a project to work on and make it fun, and maybe reward them for doing it.
Yeah, I like that. One of our viewers appreciated, said that that analysis of how you broke it down was great to break it down to the kids about, the Xbox game. And that's why, like you said, it's one thing, tear things apart. I loved working with my father because I like to understand, how do you change the oil? What does the oil do? I know that sounds crazy, and my mom used to like get so upset because I'd be greasy and dirty, but guess what? I like that. I wanted to see, a fan belt. What does a fan belt do in the car, right? So some of y'all who know I'm country, you guys know that was the thing. So that's, for me, it's really key, and it's the same thing. We're just moving into a different space because now kids just get stuff, and I look at my grandkids and I don't even know. I got to read the directions every time I get a new phone, and they're like,
Right.
"No, grandma, you just need to do this, this, this." So the thing is, to my viewers, it's those things. And you heard Dr. Gray say, then you know what? Let's get curious. Let's figure out what's happening. What causes this? How does this really work? What transmit, this signal here to cause this signal to work? That's one. I think that's basically what we're trying to say, is to get your children, grandchildren, and even some of you adults that are working, you you know what I'm talking about. Y'all been stuck in a rut, and you know that it's time to move on. And so those are the things. A couple of other comments we have here is that they're agreeing that more Black engineers, computer programmers, game creators, mathematicians, the sky is the limit. I love that, Northern Cal gal. You're absolutely right. And this is what we're talking about. Y'all get busy and get paid. You know, that's the thing. And so we also have a viewer who basically says that mentorship has to be imperative to enter the semiconductor industry. And the one thing, and which is true, I hear you, Keisha. She doesn't recall STEM or science being focused on back in the day, and that's so true. So we know that we need to have more of this, and the thing is how do we get more of it, right? And that's where we are, which brings me to this. It's not a question, I'm asking your thoughts. Recently, Senator Reverend Warnock and Alex Padilla, they advocated for increased diversity in the semiconductor industry through investments in domestic manufacturing. So do you
Right.
have any thoughts around that?
I mean, that's a really that's a big deal, Gloria. That's a really big deal. So the United States Chip and Science Act is creating helpful incentives to produce semiconductors in America Act, and it's signed by President Biden back on August 9th. So basically, it's going to channel more than 52 billion U.S. dollars into researching semiconductors and other scientific research. So the primary reason for this is to because predominantly Asia, 70% of the semiconductor manufacturing has been in Asia, right? So this is a primary aim of countering China to bring semiconductor onshore. So Intel is investing billions of dollars in Ohio building fabs. Also, Global Foundries in Arizona, Intel in Arizona, TSMC investing in fabs within the United States. And this is the biggest shortage because the demand in Asia, 70% of the semiconductor manufacturing. COVID hits, so the factories are shut down. So that's created the shortage to all the semiconductor chips, from automotives to any electronic device you may have. So fabs are trying to come back online, but they can't come back online fast enough. So we're predicting about 2025, 2024, where we'll be at a stable level of supply chain continuity. Because right now, it's the supply chain is constrained. Companies like Applied Materials, a $23 billion organization, has to lower their forecast because they can't get systems or they can't get chips, a material to complete their systems and deliver the systems to the Intels of the world and IBMs and Samsungs. So they have to lower their forecast based on the supply continuity.
Right.
Right. That's why the demand is so high. Large investments into the United States on becoming a semiconductor manufacturing giant.
Hmm.
Big deal.
Yeah, and you bring up a excellent point. The fact that 70%, I mean, think about that, of as it relates to semiconductor, that business was shipped out of the U.S. And
Absolutely.
I hear you, Keisha. One of the viewers was just saying it was the worst U.S. business ever, and I agree with that. And I've often said, when in order for us to be strong and powerful, we need to be making. Now, I can see if you want to do 30%, maybe I'm being chintzy, maybe really 20%, 80% of all the semiconductor business needs to take place here in these countries, especially in these areas where we know that coal was the mainstay of an industry, or farming, and things have changed and switched. So bringing that back, and I'm glad to hear you say that that was a really, really big deal for them advocating, and then that President Biden actually signed, this bill. So that's a good thing, and this is another reason why, Guy, I say we have, these type of guests on the show to get us moving in that direction and doing those things. So if we can take back at least 50 to 60% of the semiconductor industry that's been shipped overseas and bring it back home, look at what that's going to do. To me, that's going to make a healthier economy. It's going to build up, because as young people like you and myself, and I think I'm younger than you, go move to retirement, right? We need to have some young folks coming here and following these footsteps. And this is the thing. So this is really, really key. So thank you for talking about that. So I'm gonna shift gears on you.
Okay.
In your opinion, what role, and we hear this all the time, but I always like to ask people a different opinion, what role do you feel that schools and teachers, parents, and counselors, etc., play in getting Black students to follow, the science, the technology, the engineering, the mathematics path? Is it the teachers? Because I see different things on Facebook where certain teachers, they just cool. They math rapping and got their kids
Mhm.
involved. And I'm like, where are these kids at? So what needs to happen in your opinion?
I mean, they definitely play an important role in STEM, but as I stated before, it starts at home, right? And the teachers only can support what's been driven from the home front. But the teachers are uh, need to fight for STEM program. If they don't have a STEM program at that particular institution, they need to fight for STEM funding for STEM. But being very creative and finding out what areas, if they don't have the funding, finding out what other access points they can get, their students can go to get STEM. So a lot of school districts have a district STEM program. Um, so those kind of areas.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I just wish that we could just make it where it was stronger, and people really grasp. I see us kind of going down a rabbit hole, so to speak, if we don't really build up that pipeline and kind of have some sort of an explosion, so to speak, for lack of a better term, where we have our young Black and brown, young women and men, because young ladies, we need you too. We need you in this industry, and y'all know y'all smart. So this is these are the things, but we're just talking for those of you who are just tuning in, and I appreciate all of your comments. I see you, and I thank you so much for that. So, when we come back, we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk with Dr. Gray um, about in the semiconductor industry. Let's talk about the support or the feeling of it being empowered, in this particular industry. So you guys don't go anywhere. You're tuned in to You Didn't Get the Memo with my awesome guest, Dr. Terrell Gray. And hey, I'm your host, the authentic coach, Gloria Bailey Ray. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay.
Roll over. When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. And your mother. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
My Shiro doesn't always wear a cape, but she always has time for a hug, a smile, for going the extra mile. My Shiro stretches every dollar, puts in long hours, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. When you're ready to retire, we want you to be able to enjoy it. It's time to start saving now. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Visit aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
Testing. Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy.
All right, welcome back. And I want to thank you guys so much for being here with my guest, Dr. Terrell Gray. You're tuned into the You Didn't Get the Memo show. And I'm just always in awe and always very thankful and grateful for those of you who are tuned in. Love your comments. And I love the fact that you're loving the topic that we are talking about. Before we went to break, Dr. Gray, I had posed to you that in your opinion, do semiconductor professionals in this industry do they have support and feel empowered to point out bias, especially when it relates to product design or practices, or how they themselves are being treated as a colleague, a co-worker? So I threw a lot of stuff out there at you, so we'll just start with feeling supported. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, with the new diversity and inclusion initiatives, even a small minority of us, we could see some changes, incremental improvements. You got to basically kind of know how to maneuver in your space, but whatever organization you're in, because like for me as a a leader, I'm the only African American male in executive sales at my organization. And I was the only African American male in the previous organization. So I had to get used to adjusting to my audience, my colleagues, my peers, and not let that stop me or stranglehold me, constrain me. So I'm very upfront, very all about the customer. So the more technical you are, it builds your credibility. So the things that you do well will shine well, and the things that you may not do so well will shine well. So you have to have balance and um, know know your space, be confident in your craft, right? So once you establish that credibility, you can pretty much maneuver um, pretty well.
Okay. So I what I heard you say is you're confident in yourself, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of Black and Brown people who have not been in an environment where they are the only person of color, sometimes that can be a little daunting.
Yeah.
Definitely, there's no, you don't feel relational if that makes sense. The things that and I'm thinking of myself now, the things that maybe my white peers found as funny, and they could all, you know, relate, and I could not. And I always felt somewhat excluded. You know, there were a few that tried to, you know, pull you in, but when you don't
Right.
understand and have the same type of breadth and depth of certain things and how they were raised, I just always felt like it would be nice if they would try to learn the space that I come from, right? Without me having to always have to fit in. And I think a lot of blacks, I speak for a lot of black and brown people who have been the only one or only one of two. And even that whole piece, oh, we can't get together because there's two of us and they're going to see us as plotting or coming together. And so, you know, when we talk about feeling empowered, I'm glad to hear you say that you're seeing some changes, even though it's incremental. I want to say to all of those, because there are people who are tuned in the tech industry, and I want them to know that they need to ramp that up. They really need to understand, you know, who you're hiring and how to communicate with them, because a lot of times that does not happen, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear you say, you know, to say that.
Also, I mean, with the rise of the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's all over the news, it's all over organizations. Even like the Nasdaq is requiring companies on the Nasdaq to have at least two minority
Hmm.
um, board members, right? So it's growing fast. It's a big deal, and I've even had to call out um, and hold my Caucasian colleagues accountable for making comments that they don't even understand could be
Right.
offensive to a person of color. And when I say a person of color, it could be, you know, African American, Hispanic. So I've had to literally call out certain people in my previous organization about what does that look like. You know, words matter. So
Absolutely.
you want to when you hold them accountable, you're creating a space where you can bring your authentic self, you know, to that environment. You bring your authentic self, and everybody within that ecosystem must assume positive intent from everyone in the organization, right?
Mhm.
So remove all bias and assume positive intent and really get to understand that person's culture. So I must say a lot of organizations, even my organization, the current organization, is doing a lot of investing on diversity, understanding various cultures. So,
Mhm.
you know, it's improving, and people are now really watching what they say. So words matter.
Right, right. I agree with you. Now, what's really interesting, I see people who are chiming in. Look, you guys are ahead of your time. This was the next question for Dr. Gray. So I'll show their comments. But Dr. Gray, the question was, in your opinion, what needs to happen at the C-suite level in order for leaders and managers to embrace and really make a commitment, both verbally and physically, to hiring more blacks in the industry? And y'all, when I say people of color, you know, I'm black, so let me just be real. I'm talking about black people right now. But Hispanic, Latinx, etc. I'm not excluding you, but because I know that when you look at the numbers and it's less than 1% blacks in the semiconductor industry, there's a problem. There is a problem. So the question is, what needs to happen? And I'm saying at the C-suite level, but also at the board level, all of those things, in your opinion, you know. And I see you smiling. Look, I'm bringing it.
Good question. Good question. So, well, first of all, they need to recruit us, right? So, you know, it starts from the top. You know, it's top down. It's literally top down. If you know, now organizations are getting diversity, equity, and inclusion goals a part of the organization's mission and goals and objectives, right? So it has to be driven top down. You know, we need to go to HBCUs to create the pipeline, recruit for, you know, internships and, you know, college and career fairs opportunities. So first, the leaders, they really need to understand their environment, right? They need to know what they're working with. They need to perform a diversity assessment on their own organization to get a baseline of what the data tells them, right? So if the data tells you you only have 3% diversity, that's a big problem. And then they need to plan on integrating a solution, execute on that solution, and holding the leaders accountable from the top down on the DNI initiative. Also, they need to monitor the progress throughout the whole process, monitor and make sure the leadership or modeling the changes for all employees to make sure that they're ach- achieving the organization goals and objectives centered around DNI. And lastly, executives' compensation, of course, should be heavily weighted and tied to diversity and equity inclusion goals. So when you start tying the financials to ensuring that your organization is diversified, then that's a big deal. That gets everybody's attention. So studies have repeatedly found that companies with a more diverse leadership are better positioned to succeed. So this is not charity work. It's good for the business, right? So, but it definitely needs to be tied to compensation, top down from the C-suite to the VP level to the director level. What does your team look like, leader? What does your team look like? How diverse is your team? Right. So at the end of the year, when we do your annual review, and we look at your DNI progression, which should be heavily weighted to your compensation, I can assure you there will be some changes.
Right. I agree with you. And let me just say, when I look back over my years in corporate America, one of the things that I want to say um, to the white managers, leaders, that is vitally important. When you have a candidate that is, an African American candidate, and you have a white candidate, and they are equal. I mean, everything is equal, but you know that your team is already all white. Why would you not hire that person of color that I mean, and that's where the change needs to happen, right? And I know for me, I always wanted the best candidate, but when they were neck and neck, and that's why for me, I always had such a diverse sales team. That was really critical to me, because I understood that when you got, different people from different ethnicities, then guess what, man, I would tell you, that melting pot and the ideas and how people work together, and they feel included. They feel like I'm being heard. They feel like I matter. They feel like, hey, I'm very comfortable with bringing, my people from my community to participate and to be a part of this. And that's what companies have got to get. And this whole thing about holding on and waiting, I'm like, oh my goodness. And I asked you that question, and then we had one viewer that basically said there's a lot of boards that need members, and the whole comment is about, let's talk about getting on a board. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. And people are afraid, and we need to stop that. I'm just telling you, the days are over where I'm cleaning your house and cooking your food and
Right.
nursing your babies. I mean, nothing's wrong with that, right? But for those who have aspirations to do more, and they are smart and they are bright, here's the thing. We also have another viewer. I love it, man. People all over the country, y'all just weighing in. That in itself is a real issue.
Bring it.
You
Bring
just
it.
don't understand the process. I've seen how the temperature of the room changes when that person of color walks in to do the briefing, and that is so real, right? The body language,
Right.
how do you, and in our mind, ain't got nothing to do with thinking we know more than you. We're bringing our perspective based upon our observations and the homework and things like that. And yes, guys, I thank you for this. because we need to have this dialogue and we need to have it more often. And it is my hope and prayer that by me having more of these types of dialogues, that many of you will be moved to say, you know what, time out. Listen, you need to understand the black dollar, and what and how you can make a difference in the community. You need to understand that. And so at the same time, we need to marshal and move our resources to the places where we are being looked at and being brought into the fold and also being promoted up. And that means from the boards to the presidents to the CEOs, all the way down. And by the way, side note, if they have 8 out of 10 things that you feel like are needed, but the other two they may be lacking in, hell, hire them anyway and train them and mentor them. Quit holding back with the fact that, you know what, oh, you had everything except. I'm sick and tired of that lame excuse. So, sorry, Dr. Gray, but as you can tell, I'm passionate about this
Yes,
because
I
I look
feel
at
you.
our
I hear you.
children, you
Hey,
know.
I wanted to kind of go back, touch upon the kids coming up, and um, I mean, like, I'm into sports, right? My kids are into AAU
Mhm,
basketball,
mhm.
and what I've noticed that a lot of families, our families, put a lot of effort and energy around sports, hoping that kid gets to the NBA or gets to the NFL, and really neglect the component of academics. And if you go become an engineer, if you go study engineering or computer science or physics, that the success rate is much greater than trying to get you in the NBA. So it's kind of like they put all the energy and eggs in one basket, and not focus so much on education. And then when it comes to education, oh, go take basket weaving. If you're going to college, go study something like general studies. But STEM majors provide a great quality of life. Period.
Lev, thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. Because let me just tell you, you ain't going to be able to bounce a basketball and run up and down a court all your life. So you do need to have something else. And you need to be smart enough to know how to invest in certain technologies. That's where the money comes. Basketball will give you that paycheck that will allow you to do other things. And that's what we're talking about and why we're talking about. Okay, so moving right along because this is for me, it's got me like all juiced up, so
Fire.
shut up, right? I'm true to my Scorpio nature. let's let's talk about the challenges that may exist to retain blacks once they are hired, because you can hire them, but then there's the retention piece as well. What are your thoughts in regards to that?
I mean, so the creating an environment that you can be your authentic self is critical to retention, and understanding the diversified organization is a must. So I do know, like, the Center for Talent Innovation, CTI, black professionals are typically lumped in a category with other persons of color, which can diminish or undermine our unique experiences, right? So, um, they we need to be really focused on how we perceive things and our perception of things, and they need to learn uh, our way, our culture in that environment, in that ecosystem, that we can feel comfortable and they can better understand.
Right.
So, few black employees feel that they have access to senior leaders compared to their white counterparts, right?
Yeah.
So, like, who's your mentor within your organization? And sometimes it comes down to just taking an initiative to ask, "Hey, would you be my mentor?" Right.
Hmm.
So building that relationship, and that's what we have to do internally within organizations. I'm always finding somebody above my level, two or
Yeah.
three people, say, "Hey," and I build a relationship. Hey, and I ask him literally, "Would you be my mentor as I matriculate in my career?"
Hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, they will say, "Yes, I'll be your mentor." It's pretty odd for them to say no. I never had that experience, but just a pointer that we need to ask, build relations internally, to, if it, no matter whom that leader is that's above you, ask
Hmm.
and reach out to them, build a relationship, say, "Would you become my mentor?" and
Right.
you start kind of massaging and moving around, playing your strategic moves. So they see you engaged, they see you want to win, you want to continue to grow and develop. Um, so that's a big deal as well. And creating formal mentorship and sponsor programs in organizations for Black professionals that will forge bonds, which can propel our careers.
Right, right. Well, Dr. Gray, in your opinion, how or what needs to change, in addition to what you're talking about, to embrace a new era of the millenniums and the Gen Z workers in the tech industry? Because things have changed from the baby boomers, right? The Gen X. And so now you got millenniums, and of course, their attitude is not only are they smart, I'm going to give them that, but their thing is, look, I'm only going to work. I'm not going to give you 12 hours a day, 6 days a week of my time, and that kind of thing. So, in the semiconductor industry, what do you think needs to change to embrace this new era of employees in the tech industry?
Well, first of all, you need to really understand who they are
Right.
and value who they are. Uh,
Hmm.
we do know that they're socially awkward in most cases because texting that I'm across the room, my son texts me, "Hey, what's for dinner?" So uh embrace their social awkwardness because it's by default, it's the technology, right? So the greater the technology, it's a divide among social interaction. It diminishes social interaction. So know who they are, understand who they are. It then incorporates a flexibility in the workplace. Um, you can also adopt a digital first mindset. They do not like paper. They rather taking notes on electronics. No pen or paper. So adopt a digital mindset. um,
I like
assign assign mentors to these millennials, and provide them stretch assignments.
that. I
keep
like
them, keep them challenged. Employ tools and strategies to curb their burnout. Integrate some training and development with their career goals, and make sure you have a healthy diversity and inclusion program in the workplace
that.
because they're more in tune with diversity and inclusion. The millennials and the Gen Zs. So
Yeah, yeah. They're also more they're more open to talk about salaries as well too. So
absolutely
they will share their salaries and realize that somebody's doing the exact same job as them and they're getting paid $30,000 less. Well, let me just tell you, they have no problems with talking about that, and I love that about them. Although I have some of these in my family, but at the same time, I'm just like, okay, you got to keep it real. Look, we're
right.
going to take another really quick break. But before we do, I want to share this one comment. Hey, what's happening in Arkansas in the house? When people of color are employed by these companies, you're automatically looked at, I think he said, as an asset. But these new employees must be trained in all company changes, to onboard them with their policies. And that's key. So thank you so much for that. But when we come back, and I mean when I say quick break, I mean quick break, our time has just gotten away from us. But one of the things that I want to pose to Dr. Gray when we come back is, what does he want viewers who are watching the show to take away? So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be back in less than 15 seconds. We'll be right back.
Thank you for watching the You Didn't Get the Memo show with your inspirational host, Gloria Bailey Ray. It's your contributions that make this happen. To become a sponsor, send an email to youdidn'tgetthememo@gmail. That's the letter U, didn't get the memo. If you're not in a space to be a sponsor, but you like what you hear, we simply ask that you support what you like by making a contribution to the show. There are 3 ways to make an online donation. Visit paypal.me/Gloria Bailey Ray or Cash App or Venmo, Gloria Bailey Ray. Give what you can. Your support is appreciated.
All right, you guys. I hate to say that, like all good things, we got to go. But before we do, I posed a question to Dr. Gray. What is it that he wants the viewers to take away from watching the show today? So, Dr. Gray, your thoughts.
Well, semiconductor is real. The semiconductor industry is very real. Artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, in particular, have sparked a new wave of innovation in the semiconductor industry. So, manufacturers, semiconductor manufacturers, who can meet, both the AI and the IoT goals for semiconductor chips, they will rise up to the top in future markets. So the space is real, has a great growth. In addition, we talk about the 5G networks coinciding with the growing demand of, faster, high performance computer devices. You have semiconductor manufacturers that have, vast opportunity to tap into the new markets. Um, our phones are going to continue to go 5G, 6G is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. So the cloud space is going to continue to grow. So, but lastly, semiconductor technologies not only impacts everything from data centers, smart homes, and cities of high-speed networks, and as well as the automotive industry, but this technology has enabled researchers to develop everything from bomb detectors to smart glasses. So don't sleep on the industry.
Okay. All right. Well, Dr. Gray, you don't go anywhere. And I'm going to be right back with you. Thank you so much. I want to say to all the viewers, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Terrell Gray for being on the show today. It is my hope that you have found the information that was shared here today to be educational, to be inspirational, and motivational. Hey, be sure and follow me on all my social media platforms and mark your calendars, you guys, for every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, for always a great show. And I invite you to add You Didn't Get the Memo show to your weekly list of shows that you must watch. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. And remember, if you missed an episode, you can always go back and watch it on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. But most people I see you guys on YouTube. I appreciate you all. I want to thank you all for your support and for tuning in. And as always, it's been a blast. And as I always say, if you didn't take anything away from today's show, then it's you who didn't get the memo. Until this time next week, I want you to be well, stay blessed, and to always pay it forward. I'm Gloria Baylor, your host. Take care.